Masked Hero.
Hello everybody and welcome to another new player guide, the series where we look at a hero, the hero's pack, whether that be 15 or in this case I think 21 cards, and then we look at an example deck of next steps. What could you do with the core set and the wave that the hero came out in, and then we wrap everything up by looking at the obligation and the Nemesis Kit, just so you know what this hero is going up against. I am pretty excited to talk about Hercules because a couple weeks ago, I would have been like, oh, well, whatever, he's kind of this or that. But as I'd say the latter half of March and moving into April, I've really grown to enjoy Hercules and see a lot of benefits in him. Now, I did a video that he was highlighted in. I don't believe that he's actually like S tier, but I think that I thought of him kind of in a like D or C tier, and now could easily put him in the high Bs or the high or into the A tier. Maybe it is more of in a vacuum when you don't have every single hero to look at, but I think that overall he's a very strong hero. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get down to it and talk about Hercules, who is actually Hercules on both sides, but we'll talk about the alter ego first. So we have the 4 recovery alter ego of Hercules with the Olympus trait, and he has the text of Hercules begins the game with a labor deck and a gift deck. See insert. And so we've got the labor deck right here. It is 3 cards. We've got the gift deck, which we'll talk about in just a second, but that is also 3 cards. And that's going to be kind of the main hook of it, and which is why we're going to get to it pretty quickly here. And then he has the new labors of Hercules, which is an action. If there is no labor card in play, reveal the top card of the labor deck. He has 6 hand size and 14 hit points. He is a big, beefy guy. And what I will say, just from experience, is that it is entirely possible that you will never need to use the basic recovery. You probably will. You are going to be going back to alter ego on a fairly regular basis because obviously you want to get labors into play. In my experience, he has a way of just having like infinite life, and the hand size on the other side is going to be significantly smaller, but that's also not really a handicap. So let's get into the hero so that we're not just kind of blowing around some hot air. So we have the hero, which is Hercules again. He is a hero with 1 thwart, 3 attack, 2 defense, has the Asgard and Olympus trait and the Atonement ability, which is a response. After a labor card is added to the victory display, put the top card of the gift deck into play. Ready Hercules, you may flip to alter ego form, limit once per phase. It's not going to come up too often, but that once per phase is a relevant thing. You may see a way to push through multiple labors in a turn. Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to get multiple gifts in a turn. I take that back. In a phase. I should clarify, in a phase. It is entirely possible that you will clear... Well, actually, there's one of the labors that you will probably clear during the villain phase. Obviously, there are ways we can work around that. We'll point it out when we get to it, but it's probably going to happen during the villain phase. What's not going to happen is you're not going to clear something on the hero phase, use this ability to flip down to alter ego, get another labor, clear that labor. Do not do that. You can get very close to doing that, but do not do that because you will not get multiple gifts in a single phase. In a single turn, you could very well get the villain, also get the hero phase, and that sounds like a great turn, especially once we get into actually what the gifts are, because that's going to be really good setup. Overall, I think that, and he has 4 hand size, 14 hit points. So the 4 hand size, I'm very used to because I am a Thor player. I happen to like SPDR, even though she doesn't fall into my top 10. And Psylocke is definitely a character that I've grown a lot of attachment to. They all have pretty small hand sizes for different reasons. But I will say that Hercules is built to only have a 4 hand size, which means his cards and everything, his kit is kind of built around that concept. Which means that when you do have more than these 4 cards, you are going to feel like a god. And that's pretty awesome. Overall, I like this. I like the benefit of a really good attack. You're going to need that, and we'll even see why that is relevant moving forward. His defense is something that I don't commonly use, but there's going to be a reason why you will probably use it at least 3 times in a game. And then his thwart is his Achilles heel, and that's just what's going to happen. Right now we have kind of like 50% of what the basis of Hercules is, but you can kind of get the picture. You clear a labor, which again we'll get to in just a second. You flip over, you ready, and then you are good to, and actually I think I've skipped over the ready, especially because there's the one where you get to defend over and over again. I don't know that I suppose that's like 33% of the time when you defend, that's gonna be relevant. But you flip back over, you get a new labor into play, then from there you've already gotten that free flip, so you can be back into hero form and you can start working on that labor. But what are these labors? We're going to go over each one of them, then we'll talk about the gifts. So let's get into the labor deck. So like I said, there are 3 cards. We'll just take it from the top here. We've got Defeat the Hydra, which I think is the one that's the most synonymous, and the one that I think is probably the best one to talk about in terms of like the questions I see all the time. So we've got Defeat the Hydra. It is a labor with victory 0. Attached minion gets +6 hit points and gains the elite trait. Attached minion cannot take damage except from Hercules' attacks. And then the when revealed is find a non-elite minion with at least 6 printed hit points, reveal it, and heal all damage from it. Attach this card to it. So one of the important things is, first of all, you got to look for a non-elite minion, but then, as I almost made a mistake with my example deck, that minion then becomes elite. The obvious one here is the Hydra, which is already in his Nemesis Kit. But at that point, you've pretty much like just kind of covered up the card in some form or fashion. You're trying to be economical with your space. You're not necessarily catching that this is now an elite minion. You're probably thinking about the fact that it's got additional hit points. But yes, overall, the biggest thing I see on Reddit when Hercules came out, and as Hercules has been out for almost 2 months, maybe he has been out for 2 months. Oh yeah, he absolutely has been, because he came out in February. It's the end of April now. Is when you go to find a minion, your Nemesis Kit is part of that. I see it a lot on Reddit where the people were asking, or even just kind of like in Discord chats, where it's like, there's nothing in the encounter deck. What do I do? And the answer is you have your Nemesis Kit. Now, is the Hydra the first thing I would grab? Not necessarily. Obviously, you can read the card right now, but we'll talk about it in probably about half an hour about why this is a difficult minion to necessarily take down. But it is the option you have. It's not maybe the best option, but it is an option that you have, and it's an option that you're probably going to play into a lot. The nice thing here is we will get into the further parts of his kit, but this is not a 12 to 15 hit minion that you need to basically keep throwing your 3 damage at. Like, you're not going to be making the basic attack for all of that. You could, but hopefully you're not, because you will have cards in your deck. You're playing aggression, so you can make a big attack for 7 or 8, or you're just playing with this kit. He has an attack event that deals 5 damage, so you should be able to whittle this down. This should not be a like 3-turn clock or what have you. This should be something that you're able to take down in hopefully within about 2 turns. Still, it is a scary thing, because if this is the first one you get, which is why also I should have said this, but on your first turn, you're probably going to want to put a labor out, but there is that 33% chance that it's going to be Defeat the Hydra. That's a really rough place to put yourself on turn 1. It's something that you can overcome, but it is something that is something you're taking a bit of a risk. Obviously, there's a 66% chance that you're going to hit something else, but when you hit this, you do kind of set the game up to be quick. You need to be like on your game, and it's hard also because we'll get into the other labors in a second, but you're sort of mulliganing, not knowing what labor you're going to hit first, and that can be really scary. So then we have Embody Pathos. It has victory 0, attached side scheme gains assault. I'll get to that in a second. Threat cannot be removed from attached side scheme except by Hercules thwarts. When revealed, find a encounter side scheme that is not in play and reveal it. Treat each per player as a 1 and attach this card to it. Place 6 additional threat onto it. So again, we'll use just the example of what comes in his kit. So this would be just a 1 plus 6 more, so it would just be a 7. But the assault keyword means that you are thwarting with your base attack. Your base thwarts are using your base attack. And I'll put up a card on screen that has the reminder text on it, but I'm pretty sure that it is mandatory. If it's not, obviously there's a card on screen that is contradicting what I'm saying. Regardless, you can use his 3 attack to thwart down side schemes. So thwart down this side scheme. And that is really good. What that also means is that he has, again, we could get into these in just a second, but he has his thwart event that thwarts for 4. If you have a basic attack and this thwart event, you can just get rid of the side scheme in one swoop. And that's really great. This is what I would say is probably the one that I would want to get the most, because at the beginning of the game, you can just get a side scheme that is, might be difficult in the long run, but on turn 1 is not really something to worry about. And if you have the right hand, you mulligan, you said, hey, I'm going to mulligan, and I'm going to basically be spending my entire turn on getting that first gift, which is going to be no matter what the gift is, that's going to be probably worth burning your entire hand to take down something like Embodied Pathos. But this is the one that I probably want to see the most because it gives me the most kind of like autonomy. But let's get into the last one, which is Protect Humanity, which I feel like is another synonymous one. It is also an obligation, or this one is an obligation with 3 labor counters on it and victory 0. When revealed, find Amadeus Cho and put him into play. He is my identity-specific ally. And Forced Interrupt, when the villain would attack Hercules, choose one of your allies. The villain attacks that ally instead. After the attack resolves, if Hercules defended, remove 1 labor counter from here. This one is going to set you up to basically have the next 3 villain phases kind of sorted out, because it is also only the villain. The setback here, and again, Hercules' labors kind of force you to take into account cards that are in his kit that we haven't talked about yet, but Amadeus Cho is got that Forced Interrupt of when a minion would attack you, it attacks Amadeus Cho instead. If there is a minion starting in play, that means that Protect Humanity is going to pull Amadeus Cho into play, which we will get to in a second, does have its advantages. But now you will have the villain and the minion are both vying to take out Amadeus Cho. So either you need to get another ally into play for the villain attack to go to, or you need to figure out how you're going to keep Amadeus Cho alive, or how you're going to get another ally into play in the next couple turns so that you can work through this. Because once you lose Amadeus Cho, you don't have a way to progress this until you find another ally, and that is relevant. I think that there is a push and pull to all 3 of these. There's pluses and minuses, that they are in fact labors, and again, you are setting up your mulligan before you know what the first labor you're going to do is, and that adds a lot of decision points to the beginning of a Hercules game. But at the same time, just have some fun, and if you look at it and go, my opening hand cannot answer any of these, maybe I shouldn't pull a labor. That is something you could do. I think it's going to be a bit of a stretch to do that. I think you're going to be avoiding a lot of the good things about being Hercules to do that, but that is something you could in fact do. I don't know that I have done that yet though. But what gifts are we getting? Because these are some pretty tall tales in terms of things to do. So we've got the 3 gifts. Let's just go again. We'll go right from the top. We've got his sword of Pericles. I keep wanting to say Pericles, even though that's not what it is. It is an upgrade with the artifact, gift, and weapon trait. It is a permanent and is restricted. Hercules gets +1 hit point, and his basic attacks gain piercing. That's pretty cool. And a responsive after this card enters play, draw 4 cards. This is why I said if you are basically sculpting your opening hand to burn your entire hand and use up your basic attack, which I guess doesn't matter because you're just going to write it back up. But if you're basically aiming to use up your entire hand to get rid of whatever labor you're going to draw, that's fine because you're going to draw 4 more cards and you're basically going to get an extra turn. Very good. There's not too much more to say about it. You also don't know what order you're going to get these, so you're just sort of doing labors, hoping to get a gift that's going to be relevant to what you're doing, which these are all pretty balanced and they're all going to be doing good things for you. Your hit points go up to 15, your basic attacks gain piercing. That's pretty great. Next, we've got the Nemean Lion Skin. Again, it is a permanent, it is an artifact and a gift. Hercules gets +2 hit points and gains steady. This is one that is pretty good to have from the beginning of the game. You just have, on turn 1 or 2, you have 16 hit points and steady. That's a pretty good place to be. Response, again, draw 4 cards when it enters play. Again, you burn your entire hand, you just draw a new hand anyway. And the last thing is the Shield of Perseus. Gift, permanent, artifact. Hercules gets +1 hit point and gains Retaliate 1. Also a really great place to be, especially if you did not use the Defend one on the first turn. If that wasn't your first labor, then suddenly at some point you're going to be making 3 defenses with Retaliate 1. That's a pretty good feeling. And again, draw 4 cards. All of these are good. All of these are going to draw you 4 cards, which means, again, burning your entire hand. I don't know how many times I'm going to say this, but burning your entire hand to answer a labor is not a negative because you're just going to draw a new hand. And I think that's something that you want to keep in mind. You feel like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm putting all my resources into getting rid of this labor. That's fine because you're just going to get a bigger hand anyway. And if you don't need to use up any of your hand, suddenly you're looking at having 6 to 8 cards in your hand. As a 4-hand hero, you're not built for that. That's great. And we'll also get into how these gifts are going to make the rest of your deck just be that much better in just a second, but let's talk about his ally, Amadeus Cho. If you're enjoying this content, you may also enjoy some other content creators from around the community. First off, we've got Critical Encounters, a podcast where they talk about the villains and the modular encounter sets. We got The Winning Hand, which goes and looks at one card every episode, goes deep on the art, the power level, along with other podcasts that come out from time to time through that channel. We've got the Sidekicked podcast talking about allies, the Stunning Confused podcast talking about any number of different topics. And then for gameplay and just general variety, we have Rey Plays Games, Solo Marvel Champion, MC Deck Discussions, which does a lot of deck discussions, and the Charred Gambit, who does a lot of just, general content from around the game. Check some of them out, let them know I sent you, and let's get back to the video. So we sort of cheated that, and I feel like this is going to result in the back half or the entire kit being a little bit quicker to talk about because we've already kind of looked over the fence at some of these. But Amadeus Cho is a 2-cost ally with 1 thwart, 1 attack, 2 hit points. He is genius traded and has the Force Interrupt. When a minion would attack you, it attacks Amadeus Cho instead. Like I said, you got to keep that in mind because if you brought it in through Protect Humanity, you're going to kind of be fighting in a battle on 2 fronts. So maybe you're going to throw an ally in the way to keep Amadeus Cho alive, which is kind of funny because you basically sacrificed 1 ally for a different ally. But either way, but then he has the action, which is super relevant, of exhaust Amadeus Cho, draw a card. If you can get Protect Humanity on the first turn, not only did you get an ally into play for free, but now he just drew you a card. And that I think that's what makes drawing a labor on the first turn is something you probably want to do, because there is that 33% chance that you're going to get Amadeus Cho just in play for free. Use him to put in a thing into play. Get one of your upgrades into play or something, and then Amadeus Cho just comes into play from drawing a labor. That feels pretty great. Then we've got 3 copies of the Gift of Battle, which is a 3-cost event, pretty pricey. It has the attack trait, and reduce the cost to play this card by 1 for each gift you control, which means that it could very well cost 0. In the end game, Hercules is a beast, and that's because all of his stuff is free. Hero action, deal 5 damage to an enemy. So this is not great, especially at rate. And what I do like to think about is, I like to look at these cards that care about how many gifts you have in play and just say, what if I have 1 or 2 in play? How does that change the way I look at it? So 2 for 5, still not great. 1 for 5, incredible. And if you're at 0 for 5, that means you're probably in the last turn or turn and a half of the game, and you're going to win anyway. But yeah, this is not a stellar event. It takes some work. Once this is reduced at all, it starts to feel a lot better. And if you've got 2 gifts in play, you're probably in a place where you're just like, listen, I'll do the other labor if it comes to it, but I might already be in a position where I'm ready to just rush the game, and that's a great feeling. Then we've got 2 copies of Son of Zeus, which I don't know if this is my favorite card. It probably isn't, but it is a 2-cost event. Hero action, Ready Hercules. It's a little pricey. Limitless stamina only costs 1, but there is also the additional text of, if you have at least 1 gift in play, ready an identity-specific upgrade you control. That's going to be pretty good. If you have 2 gifts in play, gain a tough status counter. And if you have 3 gifts in play, draw 1 card. So the 3 gifts is kind of just a win more card. That's kind of beside the point, but the fact that you can give yourself a tough status, the fact that you can ready up a upgrade, which is going to be relevant, is also really great. And overall, I think one of the things that I saw when this was being evaluated early was that not everybody was catching that you ready Hercules. I saw a lot of people who were grading it on, so I have to pay 2 to ready up an identity specific upgrade. Why would I play this card? And I think just forgetting that it readies up Hercules. Now granted, this is not a good card when all you're doing is readying up Hercules. Yes, it is an in-kit way to make an additional attack. That is 3 damage. 2 for 3 is not great. This is a card that I really prioritize. I want to get at least 1 gift into play before I'm considering Son of Zeus. Readying up his upgrades is something that will change the way that you take your turns. Hello, if you are enjoying this content, if this happens to be the 3rd video of mine you've watched today, I would really love a subscription. It goes a long ways. Any form of encouragement, any form of support is definitely appreciated. I won't take up any more of your time. Then we've got Wisdom of Athena, 2 copies. We've already kind of looked at this one too, but it is a 3-cost event with the Thwart trait. Reduce the cost to play this card by 1 for each gift you control. Hero action, remove 4th bet from a scheme. So I don't want to drop this and 3 other cards to just remove 4th bet from a scheme. But if it is doing my labor, this feels pretty good, because I can just use the assault keyword to just remove all 7 threat from it. And I guess the thing to keep in mind with that is, like, there are side schemes that have other ways to add more. So suddenly you could be looking at not 7 but 10 threat, and suddenly that all changes. But I like this card, but I like this card when it is a card that costs 2. This feels like it's kind of on curve. Once you've only gotten 1 gift in play, then it feels like a fine card. Anything better than that, and it's obviously going to, you know, just get better as the game goes on. At its base, I'm keeping this almost exclusively banking on the idea of getting the labor that benefits from it. In fact, if I can, in an opening hand, this is a little bit of magical Christmas land, but if I have both of these in my opening hand after Mulligan, I actually feel like I might be on the right track, because I can at least address 2 of the labors I might hit. And that feels like you're giving yourself at least as much leeway as possible to make the best use out of it. Now, if you happen to get the Protect Humanity, then you've just got more cards, and hopefully there's something else in your remaining opening hand that's going to be able to kind of take advantage of this. But if nothing else, you can aim to try to get the Gift of Battle and Wisdom of Athena into your opening hands as a nice 1-2 punch to hopefully address a labor. And last of the double up cards, we have the Lion of Olympus. It is a 0 cost upgrade. I forget that it's an upgrade all the time. It's got the temporary keyword, which means you discard at the end of the round. I never want to assume, especially in a new player guide, that I just know the answer off the top of my head. But yes, the round is basically the thing that happens after you pass the first player token, which happens after you do the encounter card. So this bonus is going to be on you through the villain phase. And overall, I think just for a cost of 0, the fact that you can do more than 1 in a turn means that you could boost both your stats by 2. And when you are in a world where you've unlocked one of your gifts on a turn, the idea that you might have 2 Lions of Olympus in your hand at the same time, that goes up incredibly high. And so that means that this is a perfect way to kind of wrap up a game. If you have a ready, if you have Son of Zeus, suddenly, even if you boost just once, you know, you're attacking for 4. If you boost twice, you're attacking for 5, and you get to ready back up and make another attack. And yeah, just a 0 cost upgrade, a 0 cost anything in a hero kit is always just a fun thing to have. And this is one of those cards that I do feel like you are aspiring, and maybe the things you're hoping to do are a little bit kind of off the wall. It's like, yeah, is that really going to happen? But it does. It happens sometimes where you just happen to have a ready plus Son of Zeus, and you just go to town. And that comes down to the fact that with the gift system set up, and you know, in probably the more magical Christmas land is the idea that you will clear a labor during the villain phase and clear a labor during your turn. Suddenly you've seen 12 cards in a round. That's incredible. If you've seen, but for the most part, you're going to be seeing this in a context where you've unlocked a labor and you're seeing 8 cards in a round. That's a lot of your deck, especially if you've worked through it, you've gotten some upgrades out, so you've shuffled up your deck once or twice, and it's thinner because you just don't have the same amount of cards in your deck as you did before. Overall, this is all to say that, like, I find this to be not the best card in this kit, but a card that does incredible work when you unlock its potential the most. And that normally comes when you have a Limitless Stamina or a Son of Zeus in hand. This is also really good because you can boost up your defense early in the game and protect humanity, and you're defending for 3. So you are defending for Amadeus Cho or another one of your allies, but at the end of the day, you're not going to be taking damage, because 3 is a reasonable amount after boost cards to see damage for. And you know, while you're defending humanity, you're also defending yourself. Moving on to the one of, we have the Golden Mace, which is an upgrade. Cost 1, is restricted. It got the Olympus and the weapon trait. Hero interruptive. When Hercules makes a basic attack, exhaust Golden Mace, he gets +1 attack for this attack. For each gift you control, this attack gains overkill. So the overkill is independent of the boost, but you could very well have a boost of up to 6 for this attack and overkill, which is pretty good. If you happen to have Son of Zeus, you can ready this back up. You can make another attack for, 4, 5, 6, even better. And again, overkill, so you can be just taking out minions and carrying over damage to the villain. It's all great. Prince of Power, a 1 cost upgrade, Olympus Untitled traded. Your response after Hercules attacks and defeats an enemy, exhaust Prince of Power, heal 1 damage from Hercules for each power of excess damage dealt to that enemy by this attack. We have so many ways to bump up our stats. He's already starting with 3. It's very reasonable that you get a minion into or even I guess the villain if you happen to be able to do that. He's got multiple stages, but like you get a minion into a pretty low range, even if you're just healing back 1 or 2 damage, that's 1 or 2 damage that you now just have to play with, which is why I said that Hercules can sometimes feel like he just has infinite health, because you have tools in place to gain additional health with your stuff, with your gifts. You have this to kind of just heal back damage occasionally. It's not the same as like a bishop deck. His uniform can just gain you back so much life, but this does a very good impression where you're just sitting there, you're dealing a bunch of damage, and you're gaining some health back, and it's just great. And this is an upgrade that you don't mind doing Son of Zeus on, because okay, I healed back 4 damage. Now I'm going to make another attack, maybe defeat another small minion and gain back another 2, and that's just great. Got Gauntlets of Hercules, a 0-cost upgrade. Again, love to see 0. Actually, I love to see all the low-cost stuff in his pack, but armor and Olympus traded. Here, interrupt when Hercules defends against an attack. Exhaust Gauntlets of Hercules. Hercules gains Retaliate 1 for this attack for each gift you control. So this is a card that is essentially does nothing at the beginning of the game, but suddenly can give you Retaliate 3 at points. And if you're playing a long game where having all of your gifts in play is still not going to be enough to rush the game down, even having 2 gifts in play and having Retaliate 2, that's villain territory. And I love that. Olympus, which is a 0-cost support, location Olympus traded, hope it would be Olympus traded, resource exhaust Olympus, generate 1 wild resource for each gift you control. So his obligation is going to turn off and basically set your gift count to 0, which is going to be relevant. But for the most part, this is a card that you can get into play early. It's not going to do anything, but once it's able to generate a single resource, that 4 hand size doesn't feel that bad. And suddenly when this is generating 2 resources or 3 resources, again, in those hypothetical situations where having all your gifts does not mean the end of the game, this is just going to be a powerhouse upgrade. This is a card that I think is a good enough reason. He already loves his upgrades enough, but I think this is a good reason to play Front Organization. I think Hercules having a singleton copy to just sit out and be a thing for caught off guard is relevant. It's something to at least keep in mind is, do I have access to the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. box? If so, Front Organization, a singleton copy can do a lot of good because Hercules really cares about his supports and upgrades. And last card in this kit is Hercules Helm, a 0-cost upgrade, armor and Olympus traded. Here, interrupt when the villain attacks, exhaust Hercules' helm, reduce the amount of damage from this attack deals by 1. So yeah, just being able to reduce, this is not gift related, this is just, hey, the attack's coming at you. Maybe this is a card that's also good to have if you happen to get Protect Humanity, is suddenly you are defending for 3 basically, and this is just a good way to preserve that life total. Again, this is why Hercules feels like he just has infinite health, because he has so many ways to curb the amount of damage coming at him. But that is the kit. Let's go talk about the example deck. All right, and here we are talking about the example deck for Hercules, and I was really excited by this because initially, and luckily I designed this deck early enough that I was able to correct this, but originally I had a card called Coup de Grace in this deck that basically says, defeat a non-elite minion that has an upgrade attached to them. And then I realized that was solely to try to best the defeat the Hydra labor. Defeat the Hydra makes them an elite minion, so we scratched that idea. We only had to change 3 cards in what this deck is, essentially. And I will say that this kind of bloats this a little bit. This is really just a deck that takes from Civil War, Wonder Man, Hercules, and the core set. But yes, this is a deck that is designed solely to be out of the core set and the Civil War wave, so let's get into it because I think this is actually a pretty fun build. Going through everything real quick just to give you a general idea of why I picked the cards and what what they're doing for us here. Other than the cards from his kit, let's talk about Nick Fury, who is just a pretty staple basic card, and probably one that at some point you might find something else that you go, you know what, I think I don't need Nick Fury anymore, I'm going to substitute it out for this other card. Those are few and far between, but at some point you might find a more focused deck that does not need Nick Fury in it. With still the options of removing 2 threat, drawing 3 cards, or dealing 4 damage to an enemy before he ultimately goes away at the end of the round is something, and it's a reason why he is so constant. He's going to be a little bit harder to play in this deck, which means that if you are upgrading this deck and putting in new cards, he may be something that you do take out, but there's also the chance that you will have something like Olympus that will enable you to have the resources needed to play Nick Fury, or you're just dedicating most of your hand to it. Then we've got Spider Girl, who when she comes into play, she stuns and confuses a minion. That can be really helpful because we are going to try to be fairly minion focused. We want to be like getting some minions in front of us and then kind of manipulating that. And she is a way to take a minion and just make them non-essential for a turn or two. Got Yellow Jacket, who's quickly turning into a staple, akin to Nick Fury if you're playing an Avengers deck, where he comes into play, you get to search the top 5 cards for an upgrade. If we have enough upgrades in this deck with everything in Hercules Kit plus what we're adding to it, this should not be a problem. You should find something. If not, then you've just got a attacker for 2 or a thwarter for 2, and those can both be used very easily. Cribbing notes directly from Hercules' pre-constructed deck. Obviously, you need more than 14 hit points to play this card, but just a 1-cost ready is so great, and you're going to get a lot of use out of it. It just takes those Son of Zeus cards we've talked about and just dials them up to 11, makes it even better. All the things we wanted to do, we're going to be able to do, multiple times, possibly multiple times a turn. Got Savage Strike. It's newer, so let's talk about it completely. It is a 3-cost event with the skill trait, and it has the hero interrupt of when you make a basic attack, get +6 to this attack, and this attack gains piercing. So for the most part, this is not a huge card to be throwing at a minion. You're either going to, the best place to use this card is going to be against the villain or against whatever we pick with Defeat the Hydra. This just gives you a leg up there that turns your attack into 9 damage. There is a little bit of tech to this. If you happen to run into a tough villain or a tough minion, the damage is just going to make it through. I will say that it's, what is it? Is it? Yeah, if you have the sword, it's kind of already supplementing that piercing. But I say the piercing is the least important thing here. The important thing here is just to make a giant attack. And this is a pretty efficient way to do that. We do want to be making basic attacks because we can just ready back up. And so this seemed like a fun card to highlight in this card pool. And for resources, we've got Genius. I knew I wanted to have a double resource, and I figured that why not pick the double resource that matches our obligation? That could be a greedy play, but that's kind of what I'm picking it for. And yeah, just overall, we have enough of aggression cards that Power of Aggression is going to have a place in this deck. But I thought as a 41st card, this is an easy cut really, but I thought let's put in a double resource just to help out Hercules, and let's make it the one that matches our obligation. And then we have 2 copies of Air Cover. It is a aggression support, cost 1. It is tech traded, and it comes into play with 2 fuel counters, max 1 per player. Response after a minion enters play, exhaust this card and remove 1 fuel counter from it. Search your deck and discard pile for a tactic upgrade that can be attached to that minion and add it to your hand. So this is one of the pillars of the deck because we have several different, several different tactics. We have 3 copies of Caught in the Crossfire and 3 copies of Suppressing Fire, both of which are going to be helpful, and we'll talk about like the full expanse soon, but this is just a way to tutor those out. And there's 2 of them because I knew that I'm probably going to cycle through them pretty quickly. They only have two fuel counters on them, so why not make it so that we can maybe stack them back to back. And we've got Avengers Mansion, which is just a good card right out of the core set. Choose a player, they draw a card. We want to be drawing cards. Let's do it. This is a more expensive card, obviously, but again, just like Nick Fury, I feel like we have the capacity to get this out into play if we just want to focus our turn on that. And sometimes you do focus your entire turn on just building out. Even in the middle of the game, you're just like, well, I have to get this out, and this will be giving back throughout the rest of the game. Got Quinn Carrier because we can always use more resources. This is a way to also kind of shore up our ability to be playing those more expensive cards. But yeah, Avengers traded, or Avenger lock, it's traded, it is locked to the Avenger trade, but it gives us a wild resource, which again is helpful because we don't have a lot of genius resources running around, and we do want to sometimes just clear out our obligation without having to worry about it. Got Attack Team, which was a just nice filler card, and will also just help to kind of deliver damage here or there, break toughs if we need to, and yeah, just you get enough experience with the core set, and if you're in aggression, this is a card that's already on your radar. Then we're putting in the new card, relatively new card, Aggressive Conditioning, 3-cost upgrade, gives you max 1 per player, play under any player's control, but it gives you +3 hit points and +1 to your attack. giving Hercules like a 33% boost is not the same as other heroes where you go from 2 to 3, 3 to 4 does not really change many things very often. But if you are at 4 and then suddenly get a Savage Strike, that means that you can be attacking the villain for 10. And that is a pretty big deal. Plus that extra 3 hit points. Again, as I stated before, Hercules has infinite life, and this just makes it even better. It gives you more room to grow, more room to kind of take on damage. And then we have Caught in the Crossfire, which I alluded to before. It is a 0-cost tactic upgrade and attached to a non-elite minion. I don't know why I took that into account with the Defeat the Hydra. Either way, I think that even if we're not putting this onto the Hydra minion, the Defeat the Hydra target, this is still just a good thing. It is when a friendly character attacks, deal 1 damage to the attached minion. Came out in Wonder Man. This just means that you can attach it to a minion of any kind, obviously not an elite minion, but then you're just passively putting damage onto them. And this is just a nice way to take out smaller minions without having to necessarily worry about them. And you're going to be able to go grab this for free because you have air cover. You're going to be able to grab this when you need it and put it onto minions when you need them. All to say, a lot of words being spilled here, just to say that like this is a card that will help you passively defeat minions. And the last card to talk about today is Suppressing Fire, which is another 0-cost tactic upgrade attached to a minion, max 1 per minion. When you attack and defeat attached minion, heal 2 damage from your hero. The nice thing here is just that you can defeat a minion, you can heal some damage back. And again, we are a hero that wants to be in hero form as much as possible. Obviously, we're going to be swapping down occasionally, but let's just heal back some damage. I think that if you are playing Hercules and you never actually have to use your recover stat, that's a good game. But that is everything about this deck. I feel pretty confident in this. Like, there are a couple things that, like I said, don't interact with Defeat the Hydra well, but that does not mean that you can't get some longevity out of this. And you don't want to build your entire strategy around what am I going to do about Defeat the Hydra. But at least we have a couple plans. Like I said, Savage Strike is my plan for the villain and for the Hydra, metaphorical Hydra. But let me know what you think about this deck. Try it out if you are just looking to stretch your wings with Hercules. And let's get back to the rest of the review. All right, and we are back to talk about the Obligation and Nemesis Kit. And right off the bat, we have the Obligation, which I kind of alluded to a couple moments ago for me. Not for you. That was about like 12 minutes ago. But Appeal to Athena, which is an obligation give to the Hercules player. When counting gift cards you control, you have considered to control none. So that's going to turn off everything. Reason why you probably want to get rid of this. But again, going to Alter Ego is not a big deal for Hercules. So sometimes you're just going to do it naturally. So Alter Ego action, exhaust Hercules or spend Genius. A good reason to have the Genius card, just the resource in your deck, is that this can just be a way to get rid of it. That's kind of a silver bullet though. Remove this obligation from the game. So I have actually found that I'm more likely to spend Genius, even though if I were to look at his kit, he does not have a lot of natural genius resources, although, Olympus is not going to be able to do that for you because Olympus does not generate any resources for you. But you do have the 2 Wisdom of Athenas, but it's very easy for the remainder of your deck to have genius resources or wild resources of some kind. And so I actually feel like this does not come up in every game, but I feel like I've actually been more likely to spend the resources than exhaust Hercules. Either way, getting Alter Ego is not an issue. So this is rough when it hits you and suddenly the plans you had for the turn suddenly need to get diverted because you can't do everything you thought you were going to be able to do. But it's one that kind of goes away pretty quickly. Moving into the Nemesis Kit, we have Ares and Olympic Feud. So Ares is a elite minion with 0 scheme and a star, 3 attack, 5 hit points. Elite and Olympus traded, retaliate 1, and forced response after Ares schemes, deal yourself 1 face down encounter card. And then let's talk about Olympic Feud real quick because I think it is relevant to always talk about these two kind of as a 1-2 punch. So Olympic Feud is a side scheme, comes into play with 2 threat on it, and when revealed, place 1 additional threat here for each Olympus card in play, and then you're going to be drawing an extra encounter card every turn. Or the first player is going to be drawing an extra encounter card. I alluded to this before when I was talking about the Embody Pathos card. This is a target you could pick. It is going to be a little bit more difficult to take on because you're going to have, if nothing else, you're going to have Hercules in play. So that's going to add a threat. you might have already put an upgrade into play before you revealed it. So that's going to add another threat. So suddenly that 7 is at least going to be 8, could be 9 or more. This is one that is probably the last thing I would necessarily want to pick if I was doing Embodied Pathos. And I guess additionally, when you're doing Embodied Pathos, it has to be that's not in play. So this is already in play. You've already hit Shadow of the Past. You can't grab this. And I will also say that I've heard people say that Embodied Pathos is deadly if you are playing with Cable, because you might have to take his encounter card or his side scheme, and suddenly nobody can do anything. That's pretty rough. I'm talking about this in the context of just Hercules. I think if I just don't have the tools to deal with it on the first turn, like if I don't have Wisdom of Athena, I'm not banking on getting rid of Embodied Pathos on the first turn, this is one that I might pick, but I would really want to think, like, how long is this really going to take me to work through? And at that point, it's got to be real bad. The remainder of the side scenes that are up for grabs have to be real bad if this is what I'm picking in a situation where this has more than 8 threat on it, because it's going to have at least 8 threat on it. In the context of this just comes into play with Shadow of the Past, you've got Ares, that's going to be 9, and again, you might have upgrades out. So this can be a size scheme that you almost have to look at and just go like, well, I'm just never going to get rid of this. We're just going to have an extra encounter card every turn. And unfortunately, Ares is also going to give you more encounter cards. So this is actually a pretty strong 1-2 punch, because you just might never get rid of Olympic Feud. And then we return back to the Hydra, which is a minion with 0 scheme, 2 attack, 6 hit points. It is a creature Hydra, and force interrupt after a character you control attacks and damages Lyrian Hydra. Choose to either spend a physical resource or this minion heals 2 damage. I think I've actually chose to have it heal damage more than I've chose to use up resources. As Hercules, and this isn't always coming out with defend or defeat the Hydra, but as Hercules, I would almost rather not use up my resources, because I only have so many of them. I only have 4 cards in my hand, and I'm going to use one of them to basically prevent 2 more to prevent a regeneration of 2 damage. I'd almost rather just have the cards. So this is a tricky situation. It's one of those ones where the right answer probably is to spend a physical resource sometimes, but you'll find yourself healing 2 damage. Sometimes because you have to, because you just don't have it in your hand, but sometimes because you're just like, well, no, I would much rather have my cards, because everything costs stuff and I only have so many. That's a quarter of your normal hero hand on this. Now, if this is not with Protect the Hydra and it's open to everybody, someone like Spider-Man or Captain Marvel, who already have a bunch of cards in their hand anyway, they don't care about that. They're just going to use a physical resource and get rid of this as soon as possible. But this is a sizable minion. Without Protect the Hydra, it's pretty easy to get rid of. Just 6 damage. A lot of heroes can just blow through that really quickly. Then we have God of War, which is a treachery. When revealed, each minion attacks the player they engage with, even if that player is an alter ego form. That's irrelevant. If no minion activated this way, hopefully you can get at least 1, because if not, then you're going to discard off the top of the encounter deck until a minion is discarded and reveal that minion. This is not too scary. It's rough if there's a bunch of, like, if you're playing with Tigra and she's got a bunch of minions in front of her, suddenly she's going to kind of have to pay the price. But for the most part, most games, people are cleaning up minions on a pretty regular basis, so this is not going to be a big deal. Or you have a plan for the minions, like you're just reducing the amount of damage, or you're stunning them or something. And so, yeah, this kind of kills an activation, but it's not the end of the world. And then last card for the day is Ares Axe, which is a attachment. It gives +2 attack attached to Ares, otherwise attached to the villain. Force interrupt after the attached enemy attacks. If no friendly character took damage from this attack, discard this card. What I like about this is that it can be put on the villain, but it's not stuck on the villain forever. Like, there is a way around it. You might have to be dealing with essentially villainous, and the amount of damage you need to defend against is kind of going to be variable, but there is a path. You can just give yourself an enormous amount of defense and defend against an attack. You can just get, I think Vision can just say, I take no damage. This is a fun attachment. It is going to be threatening. It can just come down and just be a pain in the butt. You know what? That's kind of the nature of the game. So that is Hercules. I did not give Hercules enough credit initially when he was previewed. I thought he's going to kind of be a so-so character. I've been very impressed with him. I've actually enjoyed him. I think he's a very good hero. And yeah, go out and try him out. Try out his pre-con deck. Try out the deck I recommended earlier in the video. Whatever need be. But thank you so much for your time, and I want you to all have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one. You're doing great. Keep it up.